Hello, I'm Conrado Cerrillo, and this is Comic Caddy. Today, I'll be interviewing Brad Perri, the creator of Pirate Mike. Now, let's just start with the interview. Alright,
Sure.
first question. DC or
Okay.
Marvel?
Marvel. Absolutely. Yeah, no, Marvel, hands down. I would say, and to be specific, I would even go so far as to say Jim Shooter Marvel. I mean, that was the '80s. Marvel was really my time to shine with comics. Though I will say this, more contemporary stuff, I have found myself leaning more towards DC, but I will always be a Marvel man at heart.
Yeah, Marvel's freaking awesome. I'll always go for Marvel because Marvel's the best, in my opinion.
Yep, I have to agree.
Alright, so tell us about your comic.
Yes. Well, Pirate Mike is a comic strip. It's in the traditional gag strip, four panel gag strip, newspaper strip you'd expect to see. So it's a very much an all audiences age group. It is about a pirate who lives in the suburbs, and he has a family out there. You can imagine he is not doing all that well. He doesn't. He's maladjusted, as the title of the strip puts it. So usually, what I try to do is try to put Mike in some sort of situation where he would be able to exhibit to a greater degree. I think the frustration that most, if not all of us, feel with just dealing with the regular constraints of daily life.
Alright. Well, what's your inspiration? Like, why did you choose a pirate, for example?
I've wondered about that. I don't know. What happened is, I think what happened is I was getting ready for work one day, so maybe my frustration with the job I had at the time, I was a lawyer and I had to wear a suit and tie, and I was putting a tie on, and the image occurred to me of a pirate standing at the top of stairs, top of a ladder, getting ready to clean the gutters. And for some reason, this struck me as funny. But I was doing a different strip at the time about dogs, of course. Everybody's got to do a dog strip. And so I put it aside. And after I got over a bout of tendonitis, I was doodling in a notebook and I made a mistake. It was just an ink splatter. And I turned, you're just for fun, you try to turn ink splatters into something. And he turned into a pirate. And I thought, aha, it's that pirate again. So I just started thinking about him, and I had a couple of ideas that popped in my head, and I've stuck with him ever since. And that's been since October of 2013 when I started putting Pirate Mike out there.
Alright, so is there any inspiration for the character behind him? Like,
Yeah, that's another thing that has kind of been percolating. Because I'm always trying to understand, what is it that I'm doing? I would say that the character that most inspires me when I am thinking of stuff for Mike is the little demon named Leopold from a strip called Scary Gary. And Scary Gary is a vampire, and his little demon is a henchman. And the stuff that Scary Gary gets away with, he will show the demon having little body parts that he keeps in the freezer, eating people in the neighborhood. And I just try to, when I get stuck, I try to think, how can I make Mike a little nastier? Because if he's going to be a pirate, there should be a nasty streak to him.
mm-hmm. What's your biggest influences? Creators or creations?
Oh, I can hope that my greatest influences are probably Charles Schultz. I mean, I love Peanuts, Jim Davis with Garfield. I love, and when I'm talking about Garfield, I'm especially talking about the stuff that I was a 10-year-old kid in 1982 when those first Garfield books came out, and I remember vividly. I mean, we could not get enough of those, and that's really when my cousin Tom and I started first drawing comic strips because of Garfield. We thought, look at this. Hey, it's 4 panels. We can do this. Because I think up to that point we had thought in terms of comic books. Boy, comic books take a long time to do just by yourself. So I like the idea of a comic strip. So I would say I would like to think that my biggest influences are Schultz and Davis.
Right. Do you see how many of the comic strips that you made when you were a kid?
Funny you should ask that. I found one just recently, oddly enough, and it's of course predictably terrible. Um, but it's about and I wish that I what I really wish I had are the ones that my cousin Tom and I did. We kept them in a box, and like all great things from childhood, it got thrown out. Okay, the box was inadvertently tossed during a house cleaning, and they're gone forever. Um, but the one that I found was one that I had drawn even after my cousin and I had drawn all of those. So I'd say it's about maybe 11 or 12. And the only reason I can kind of tell the era for it is that I inexplicably put one of the beavers in one of those old style punk rock sunglasses, like Cyclops style. This was edgy, I think, for me at the time. So, but yeah, I have come across one of them at least. There is one surviving strip.
Hey, what's the best part about working on the comic?
Drawing. I love it. I love being able to do something creative finally. I think like a lot of people, you're there's always that idea of like, oh, I would like to do something creative, whether it is podcasting, whether it is drawing, whether it's writing. People have their wood shop, people have their knitting, and so I was always kind of stuck because I thought, oh, I would like to write or tell a story. I liked telling stories, and I don't know why, but for some reason, comics clicked again for me when about I don't know, about 14 years ago. I was sitting around, and I got to credit my wife. I think my wife just saw me doodling all this stuff, just kind of not really doing much with it. And one day she came home with a couple of pens and some bottles of ink. And I thought, oh, I haven't seen those in a long time. And it was fun. I started doodling with that, and it just kind of keeps on going. And I can't remember exactly why I hit. Probably because it's what I did as a kid. I just figured let's do a comic strip again.
Hey, what's the hardest part about working on a comic? Do you have any struggles?
Oh, sure. I think it's the struggles that anybody faces, when you're trying uh, to do something that ultimately you kind of want an audience for. I think there are folks who can say, "Hey, I do my art or I do my painting or I write a book and then I put it in a drawer and nobody ever sees it." I think, Kafka, Emily Dickinson. Uh, God bless them. I don't know how they did it, but I want to share it with people and I want people to enjoy it. I look at it as like having a basketball or a football, and you want to play football, well, you need other people. And so I look at that as comics as a real audience intensive uh, type of approach, type of art, where you want to have people involved in it. So, but the hardest part, of course, is whether even if you get negative feedback or no feedback, or thinking this isn't any good, or why am I doing this, and so I think the biggest challenge is to keep drawing even when you're discouraged and you're feeling low. And maybe the bigger challenge is to understand, and I've talked with a couple of other guys who do comics or any other number of things, is after you quit to realize that there's just some times where you're going to quit. It's almost like part of the game. It's like, well, okay, this is your third time quitting. Maybe it's like cigarettes. You quit a few times, but with comics, ideally, you're always going to start again. Unlike cigarettes, where you hope you quit, generally. But I think that's the hardest part is maybe keep doing comics even when you think nobody's looking at them.
Hey, um, how do you define success as a comic creator?
Making them, quite honestly. In my heart of hearts, there's always I think for a lot of us, maybe there's that fantasy that you'll run into a lot of people and you'll have a large number of people who will really like it to the point where not even, being famous, obviously, but just being able to make a living would be really great. Um, to be able to devote more time to it would be really great. I think a lot of people, you can tell with Pirate Mike, one of the things that I run into is not having as much time to devote to it that I would like to devote. I think I have a lot of themes and a lot of characters that I would like to develop, and I think that requires time. Um, Unfortunately, I don't have that time. I have to, like a lot of us, you have to go make a living. Um, so I would say how I define success right now is that I keep making them.
Right. So you keep on talking about making a living. What do you do outside of making comics?
I do copywriting. I write websites for attorneys right now, and so it is more or less here's a page. If you're having a hard time with this certain circumstance, you should know that this law firm handles these kinds of cases. Obviously, you want to make it a little more inspiring than that. But that's pretty much what I do now. So at least during the day, though, it's interesting. It has helped me tremendously uh, to learn how to keep making something, whether it's a website, writing on a website, or writing for comics. Maybe when people say, "Oh, I'm not really inspired." Well, I don't really have that option. It's like they're expecting a certain number of pages every day, and you better crank them out. Um, so I try to take that same approach with comics, which is feeling inspired. Boy, it's nice when you have that, and when you don't have it, it's okay. And I think I used to go into a panic, like, oh, that means like I don't have some special gift or something. I'm not inspired. And I think now I'm at the point where I can recognize that as a little bit like a pitcher in baseball. You come out of the bullpen and you got your great stuff today. Pitchers say that happens maybe 1 out of every 5, maybe 1 out of 10 starts. For the most part, you're out there and you're really just pitching and hoping that the guy doesn't hit the ball. And I think that's a little bit how comics are, because you want to keep doing them on a regular basis like that.
Right. So if you had a chance to make a living off of your comic or illustrating in general, would you take it?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would like the challenge of doing it. I think there are definitely people who don't want that particular challenge. I think that they have other professional goals in life, and doing comics all the time isn't one of them, and that's entirely understandable. For me, I would like to see what would happen. It's a little bit like when people say, "Oh, I would hate to be rich." Think of all the problems that come with being rich. To which a lot of us respond, "I would like to have that problem. I would like to be given the opportunity to see how I'd handle that horrible burden of having too much money." I think comics are the same way. I mean, you read very obviously people who are great, famous cartoonists who are very careful when advising people whether they want to do a comic strip or not. In the old days, it was because hey, it's punishing, doing a comic strip day in day out. And these days, people are careful because you don't want to say to someone, "Hey, yeah, boy, you got a steady job. You should quit that steady job and do comic strips." When maybe the syndicates, in the traditional way, that newspapers, one strip gets syndicated every 3 years now. Okay, it's like getting struck by lightning. And then even online, you've got to have a very good following. You look at something like Awkward Yeti or Sarah Scribbles, or I'm pretty sure Awkward Yeti has only recently started making a living off of it, and I think Brian Gordon with Foul Language is the same thing. And the model that the syndicate has taken there is they've picked them up as a web comic, and they're publishing their stuff as books. They're totally bypassing the newspapers now. I'd still like to be the kind of person who's cranking out a daily newspaper strip. I would like to see what would happen. I think, just to give an example, Bill Watterson, okay, with Calvin and Hobbes. How long did that strip run? 10, 12 years, I think, roughly. It wasn't until his 15th year of doing Peanuts that Charles Schulz had Snoopy fight the Red Baron. Okay, 15 years. And I think the only way you can get to that point where you have Snoopy flying on his doghouse to fight the Red Baron is because you have finally lost your mind and you have no ideas left because you've been draining it for 15 years every day. And I think it's a lot like pitching. It's, again, I go to baseball. You just keep doing it day after day after day, and I think interesting things can start to happen.
All right. So, what steps are you taking to get to? Are you taking steps to get to make a living off of it?
Oh yeah, You know, and it's I'm slow, and I'm slower than some people would like. I have very good friends and very successful and talented friends who get impatient with me because I am I move at a glacial pace. You know, I'm very slow. But what I try to do right now is I try to make sure that I am putting my strip in front of some newspaper editors, and I've been fortunate enough to get some feedback from them. I do use the Comic Sherpa service. I put it on social media. I do try to be active with Facebook and Twitter, a couple of other mediums. I try to every year I put the strip together into a comic book collection that I then sell. I go to the conventions around the Twin Cities and I'll sell them. I sell them online as well. Pardon me. I've even had the good fortune of getting into a couple of comics publications. One of which is still going. It's a monthly comics magazine called Comics Monthly, and I show up in that magazine with syndicated strips like Peanuts, like Beetle Bailey, like Pearls Before Swine. So that's a lot of fun. Laugh-O-Gram, which is no longer with us, the late lamented Laugh-O-Gram. I was lucky enough to get in there right in time for their last issue, and they actually put me on the same page as a big Snoopy Sunday page. So I was really happy to see Pirate Mike and Snoopy on the same page. In addition to that, I have a newspaper up here in Duluth, a nice monthly newspaper, and they print Pirate Mike in black and white. So I do have Mike in print, which is fun. And then a couple of other online outlets that I go to. Empire Lab Comics runs Pirate Mike every Wednesday, and then of course my own website. You know, try to sell shirts, try to sell mugs, stuff like that. So I try to get it out there, try to get it in front of people, and I'm trying consistent. And I've been very happy with the feedback that I've received from folks who can maybe more experience in the field. Phil being one of Phil Giuliano, Best in Show being the main one. But editors with newspapers too who can give me some feedback and say, hey, look, this is what a syndicate is looking for these days. As rare as it is to be syndicated, these are some of the things that they're looking for that Pirate Mike falls short with. So that has been a great gift for me right now, and actually, I'm right in the middle of applying some of those insights that I think a couple of editors, one editor in particular, but a couple of editors have been kind enough to provide me with that I think are going to really, I think they're really going to open up the strip. And so I'm excited about that. It's an exciting stretch here, I think, for Pirate Link.
I can't wait to see. I loved reading it. By the way, it was I
Thank you.
read on the bus and it was amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I
All
appreciate
right.
that.
Where do you see your comic strip in 5 years, and where would you like to see it?
I would love to see it syndicated. I hope that Pirate Mike is syndicated. I hope that in 5 years I would be able to be generating some more income off of it. I don't know, and part of it I'm still gauging what's realistic. I think the easy question is, well, golly, I hope he's in a bajillion newspapers and I'm famous and making a lot of money. I want it's always a little bit like reality check time, and I have found that is very helpful in keeping me going. Is my real goal, in all honesty, my real goal after 5 years is that I'm still doing it. Whether it's Pirate Mike or another strip, that I'm still making a comic of some sort, because I think that's the real goal. And I have found that I improve a lot more, and I get a lot more responses, and I get a lot more done. If my real goal is always in 5 years that I'm still making a comic strip on a regular basis, and I'm always looking to improve. Obviously, the unrealistic part of Brad, that's just like, reality aside, what I would really like would be I'd be in a position where I'd be on an upward trajectory with having Mike in some sort of situation where I'm able to generate enough income off of him where I'm able to devote more time to him. Let's put it that way. How about that?
Yeah. All
Whether
right.
it's a newspaper or something else.
All right. Who should I interview next?
I would want you. Let's see. You've already interviewed Phil. I want you to interview a guy named Steve Ogden. Okay, Steve Ogden. Now, and this depends on who you want to be interviewing. Steve, for instance, just got picked up by the Go Comics service. So
Mm-hmm.
he was on Comic Sherpa for me with me, and every now and then the editors from Go Comics, and they read it all the time. They'll pick up a strip from Comic Sherpa and they'll put it on the main site. Okay, so you're on the same website as, again, Doonesbury, Peanuts, stuff like that. Steve is impressive because Steve has dedicated many, many years, decades to this. And it's an exciting time for him to see his strip get picked up and to get that kind of attention that it really merits and deserves. It's a very clever strip. It's one, in my opinion, it's one of the best drawn strips, web, comic book, or comic strip. He's just, and on top of it, he's a really good guy. What I really look to Steve for is character design, and he has been someone who has worked with me, has been very kind and generous with his time to provide me with feedback on some character designs, especially because I'm still working on that dog strip. Yes, it's still there. And every now and then that's another strip that I think about submitting, and I'm still fiddling with it. But Steve is always a guy that I can count on for useful feedback. You're always looking for somebody with feedback, and sometimes you get feedback from people that's just really negative or not really helpful. Whether, oh wow, I really love that, thanks mom, or the that's garbage. Well, that doesn't help me at all. Steve, like Phil, is someone that you can rely on for insightful, thoughtful, being a thoughtful reader, and seeing his response to the strip helps me tweak the strip in any number of ways. So I would say Steve Ogden. The strip is called Magnificats,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be happy to point you in his direction at some point if that's something you needed. But you can find him; he's definitely available.
All right, and finally, do you have any questions for me?
Why are you doing this? What do you love? Just love comics? How is this? What's the genesis of Comic Caddy? Tell me about that.
Well, I want to make a living off of this too, so that's like one of my goals. Um,
Cool.
and I say, hey, why not like be part of the comic community? So I wanted to get
Yeah.
like know comic creators and whatnot, and getting there. So you're my second interview, and then,
Congratulations.
yeah, that's
Very
what I'm
cool.
doing, and that's another interview. Um,
Well, you mind if I just say one thing
yeah,
for you here? I just want to tell you, I think, and I tell this to everybody, right now with the internet, you already know this because this is why you're doing this, but I just want to confirm. I really think this is another golden age for comics. I think we are just on the cusp of really seeing what this form can do. The varieties of comics that are out there now, the variety of voices, we've just never had anything like it before. So even if print syndication and people are worried, oh, what about comic books and print and what about the we've got a lot of great comics, and this is just the start. The best is yet to come, so to speak. So if you get the chance, find a guy named Adam Vermillion. He does a podcast with comics that I've done with him. He's in Twin Cities area, and same kind of enthusiasm. We need you guys so much to get the word out there about what's going on, because I think there are a lot of doomsayers about comics. Oh, comics are dead. Comic strips. It's okay. We're doing really well, and I hope more people will check us out.
all
So
right.
thank you for your part in that.
Yeah, thank you too for being a great like contributing to the comic world. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a nice day.
You too. Take it easy, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank